allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Thank you all for coming. Before we get started, I just want to say hi to the little girl eating ice cream at home on Tuesday night. Just saying, she really likes to watch us. So, hi. Our next point, we're going to move into executive session after we get through some business first. Heather had said she doesn't have a report for us today, so we're going to skip over that. Are there any select board updates or liaison reports that anyone has? Nope. I don't have any either. School committee meets Tuesday. Nothing. So we can move right into open time for the public and get that out of the way first. Anybody? Oh, we're moving right along here, huh? Next, we can talk about a review of the articles to be placed on the annual town warrant. You should have a copy of those in front of you. Once these are approved in content, it will be sent to town council for review. I think the first is pretty standard, which is the, what's the word I'm looking for? Scholarship from the highway department. The second is the article presented for the health agent to have the position funded fully. There's not, no, there's nothing we can do about that. The third is the omnibus. How do you say that word? Omnibus? I don't like that word. So nothing we can do about that right now. And then you have two override questions. The first is to fund the fire department second shift at $135,000, and the second is for the police department, but there's no number included here, so I assume we're waiting to hear from the police chief. Article 6 is to change the treasurer collector to an appointed position. This is the same wording as last year. I requested to have it put on there. No conversation. We have a property, the sale of property. Is that how it should be worded? Do you have this in front of you, Robert?
I have it, but I got HA, it stopped. Article 7?
Yeah.
It's incomplete.
Okay, I was just reading it and it doesn't even seem worded correctly, so.
It stops at will vote to, I would assume have, but have what?
Right, okay, so we need to look at 7 again. Heather had put some placeholders in here, so the fire hydrant bylaw was one that we had talked about supporting at the annual town meeting, but she was still looking for wording from other communities, so it's just a placeholder at this point.
Repeat, please?
It's just a placeholder at this point. She's looking for the correct wording. Fiscal year. All right, I'm out of order. Hold on. That's 8, then 9.
9 should be what it is.
I'm just seeing.
Those are all the community
Right.
preservation committee articles.
Yeah.
And there's no number for it, so if it's the next one down, it should be 9.
No, this is 9 on the next page.
I know, but
Oh,
we don't have any number for this.
right.
They should be on the drop if
What?
that's the case.
Liz,
Yes.
so you get 310, 410, 510. So 9 is here on 510. Do you have that?
5 of 10. Yeah, 9's on 5 of 10.
Yeah.
But article on
Right,
page
but
3 of
8 is
10,
on 3 of 10.
So
there's
8.
no number for the articles for community preservation. It just has A, B, C, D, E, F.
Those sound like her feet.
Number 9.
There she
Yeah.
is. We're having trouble with the numbering of your articles.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
it's right, yeah, right here.
That's probably due to the fact that those are the draft version.
Okay.
All right,
So
where are we at?
we went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 doesn't seem to be complete.
No, 7 is pretty much a placeholder. So
Okay.
what this is.
Same with 8.
There was a property on Madison Ave, off of Madison Ave. It's in trying to think of the name of it. It's one of the circle areas when you go up
Buchanan,
Pass those down.
Brickyard.
Buchanan,
And essentially what this was Donna had put this on a couple years ago. The property was on for foreclosure because of back taxes. And what they ended up doing is the woman ended up deeding the property to the town, but she didn't deed it in lieu of the foreclosure. So the attorney that was working with Donna in the treasurer's office had said that we couldn't actually do anything with the property until the town voted that we could move forward. So this is simply just a placeholder for this article, because we don't have the exact wording, but Donna's going to grab it for us within the next day or two. So it will be in a finalized version come Tuesday night.
Is that the same with 8 as a placeholder?
8 is a placeholder. The board at one point had asked that we look into doing a fire hydrant bylaw that required folks to clean out their fire hydrant. The problem is, it's very hard to find one that exists. We've actually done a couple listserv pieces on it. Another gentleman from another community had done as well, and we haven't been able to get, or have much luck getting responses back, so we're still waiting on that one. If we can't find anything, we'll have to pull it. Otherwise, we'll try to get creative.
Okay, so then, here's where the problem comes in. We see A on page 3 with no article, A through F.
A's on the back side on page 4.
no, page 3.
Right, there's,
A down below.
page 3 has A at the bottom, and then you flip over, B, C, D, E, F. Just needs a number.
A what?
Yeah, but what it is I think it just got messed up because I deleted something before that. But A, it's the same thing as Article 9.
Okay,
So that should be 9.
and then
Yeah. I wouldn't worry about the numbering per se. We will fix that for next time.
just checking.
Okay.
Okay. So then you have the water pollution abatement trust loan repayment, ambulance fee account,
Yes.
ambulance
And,
stabilization fund.
I can tell you what happened. So going back to page 3, what ended up happening there was that these are CPA items.
Yeah,
Last year, town council had asked us to put together how much money was going to go into each account, historical, open space, and the third one, which is escaping me at the moment. And then the rest goes into undesignated, but because we are required to put 10% in each of the 3, according to the auditors, we do not have to put that article on. So when I deleted that about an hour ago, it didn't reset the numbers.
So what article is it?
she'll just have to
So what I'm
renumber, it's
saying, John,
probably
is it used
9.
to be Article 9A through F,
Okay,
and what happens, once I deleted that top piece,
yeah.
it just dropped these. So these will just be independent numbers.
And it has a heading CPA or,
Yeah,
there's no heading there.
we can make sure that's back. All right, so which one are we on, Liz? You said WPAT loan
Well,
repayments.
those are all regular things we see
Yep.
every year, so I was kind of just skipping over them unless
And we're
anybody
still
had any
looking at
questions.
we're still looking at the amounts and the
Yeah.
figures to put in those.
Okay, so I was moved on to 14.
To 14?
The park commission revolving fund, is that for the mowing? Is that what that is?
Um,
What's this?
Essentially, that comes down, not so much the mowing, but that comes down to where the park had requested the ability to charge different groups for using the fields. So this would be a revolving fund that would be created, so the money from the independent group would go into the account, and then they could spend expenses out of it.
Okay.
Same thing with the planning board, this one's a little bit different. So John Furman was phenomenal when he was on the planning board as chair, and he had a lot of expertise to offer the board. Upon John Furman's retirement from the board, that expertise is missing. They've now looked at contracting with PVPC to essentially be the active, quote-unquote, planning board. Therefore, a revolving fund would be created for the purposes of fees from applicants to go into the account and then pass over to PVPC. We can't just have them pay directly.
I want to back that up. You're not an active planning board, you're an agent of the planning board.
Yes, but essentially, they're acting in many ways.
Not losing the planning board.
No, we're not losing the planning board, they're just doing the work.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. This Article 16, something that happens every year.
Yep, these are just revolving fund numbers.
Then 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 are all the capital,
It's It's a
Capital
capital
items,
improvement
yeah.
committee's suggestions and recommendations for items that should be taken out of capital stabilization fund.
Okay. And then that's the fuel tanks at 22.
Can we go back just a second?
Sure.
Capital stabilization, how much is in it now?
It's about 230, give or take.
It left, when they do
230,000.
these, it leaves 25% of whatever's in there now left in there.
We know that?
Yes,
They had
they've
said
already done the math.
Okay.
that,
So
I don't have that
ba-
paper with me.
Based on what, can't think of his name.
There was a presentation that was
Yes.
done by Tim a
Tim.
few weeks
Yes.
ago when we did a joint
He
meeting.
said whatever their total was, they agreed that they would leave 25% in there.
I remember that, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And we can make sure that that comes in as a note.
So Article 22 is the debt exclusion for the fuel tanks at the highway department.
Yes.
And then the Article 23 is the debt exclusion for the public safety complex.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions about any of those?
We're gonna re-see this before the May?
So what's going to
Yes.
happen from here is, as long as you want to move forward with all the articles as of today, what we'll do is, we will polish them up, get the right numbers in them, send them to town council for review. Usually Pat's pretty good at getting it back to me in a couple days. And hopefully come Tuesday, we'll put it back before the board, and the board can officially at that point vote to move forward with everything. So what I'd recommend to the board is, like on Articles 22 and 23, the debt exclusions, to review those and make sure those are ones you want to put forward. The same thing goes for Articles 4 and 5, which are Prop 2.5 pieces. One for the fire department, for a second shift for the ambulance service, and one as pertains to retaining a police officer.
Is there a deadline for people who would like to submit things? Has that come and gone?
The deadline is when you sign the warrant.
So people have
So
until
if anyone
then?
has anything else they'd like to submit, they need to do so.
Can you
very
remind
soon.
me about that after?
Can I remind you? Yes. So essentially, we're required to have this posted at least 7 days before the meeting because it's an annual. Special ones require 14 days previously, but we try to get out as soon as we can so that people have the information available to them. And if they have any questions about putting articles on, they can also contact the town moderator, which is Robert Floyd.
Mr. Floyd, you are my next person. What concerns or questions do you have for us?
Robert
about-
Floyd, 15 East Street. Just a clarification, the select board voted maybe 4 years ago, regardless whether it's an annual, to have a warrant posted 2 weeks before the meeting.
Okay,
Vote that was unanimous all 4 years ago.
okay. Are you planning to have an information session? Do you have a date picked out for that yet, or not quite?
Up top, I think it's that Thursday, the
Thursday before, the 14th?
maybe, sorry.
Hi, Doctor.
Hey, Madam Chair, how are you?
Good, how are you?
My apologies for being late.
No trouble.
It's the 7th,
Okay.
7 o'clock, Thursday.
Here. So there will be an information session on May 7th at 7 o'clock in this room for anyone interested in knowing more about the articles on the warrant. Thank you.
Heather, I got a question. Has to do with the debt exclusion.
Yep.
Are you going to get supporting information in regards to the effect on tax rates on both these articles?
We can. We've already got preliminary responses from our financial consultant, so we can get more solidified numbers from him on how it will affect the tax rate. One of the things he takes into considerations, for instance, with the public safety complex debt exclusion idea, is that we have debts that will be coming off in the next few years, one of them being the Norris School roof, I believe, in 2017, and then the Hampshire Regional School debt, which comes off, I believe, in 2021. So when those come off,
Library still out there, or is that
is what out there?
Library paid off?
Library's done.
Okay, that's all. So you're gonna have that, the next meeting?
Yes, the next meeting, the next meeting, this should include all of its notes, and it should also be finalized, but I agree, I think that's an important piece to put.
Okay. Mr. Floyd?
Robert Floyd, 15 East Street, Town Moderator. Who will be explaining the election process after the town meeting, if and when any of these articles, that exclusion 2.5% override, who will be explaining how many days there will be an election,
Who customarily does that?
town election?
That would be the clerk, wasn't it? The clerk would have to.
The town clerk?
No, but at the town meeting or at the moderator information meeting on Thursday, May 7th?
I would just ask the town clerk, what she thinks might be an appropriate window of opportunity.
Okay.
She's right next door. If somebody wants to,
Yeah. I mean, I know the days, I just want a spokesperson for the public to explain it.
As long as there's not a baseball game that night, intend to be here, so if it needs to be me, that's fine. If it's
Okay.
the town clerk, that's fine.
All right,
I'm sure between the two of us, we can figure it out.
great, thanks.
Anybody else? Anything about the town warrant?
what's the deadline for accepting articles?
We don't have one at the moment, so if anybody needs to put one on, they should do so soon.
When does it have to be posted?
Well, right,
Has to be posted by what time?
2 weeks before the town meeting.
Town meeting is what time this year?
That means next Tuesday, the 28th, is when I hope to have the sign before the board.
So people have to get, if anyone's interested in another article, then they have to get it into us by the end of this week, I would assume.
Right. Okay. Very good. We don't have any appointments tonight. We don't have any PCFs. We don't have any PRFs. We don't have any licenses or contracts. We are moving right along.
Is there any payroll warrants?
They're down at this end, so when you're done with the warrants, you could pass them
Can I take a
down.
look at them?
Yep, here's one.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Hampshire Regional Emergency Planning Committee endorsement of joining and appointment of emergency response coordinator. Heather, you have those papers?
I think did I give them back to
I gave them back to you. Yep. So, this is a letter from the Hampshire Regional Emergency Planning Committee, and I was hoping that you would know more about this than,
In the past, the fire chief was on the committee, and he was the person to go to.
our fire chief.
Our fire chief. Or it can be the police chief.
Maybe it's in that
Or
one.
it can be the emergency manager, emergency manager, I believe.
Do I need to sign anything?
Can it be the highway super?
Well, it says, under federal regulations, every city and town in the country must form a local committee or participate in a regional group. So we have a letter here endorsing the joining of the Hampshire Regional Emergency Planning Committee, which is a regional group. It says, to whom it may concern, we fully endorse joining the Hampshire Regional Emergency Planning Committee and endorse its efforts to develop a hazmat response plan, to update and exercise said plan each year, to provide training to emergency responders, to collect and store Tier 2 hazmat facility data, and to respond to public requests for the entire Regional Emergency Planning Committee. This is in keeping with the guidelines of the Emergency Planning Right to Know Act and the Massachusetts State Emergency Response Commission.
Considering that the fire chief is the hazardous waste coordinator, he should be the one with that hazmat material. Okay, because it's strictly hazmat.
But do we need to sign it endorsing him?
Well, we need to either tell him that he's gotta go there, or whatever you wanna do. But I believe the chiefs were the ones that went to those meetings in the past.
But do we have to appoint them? Do we have to give a name? Is that what they're asking for?
I'm not sure, I think that this is asking that the town of Southampton be a part of this, not so much who
They've
is,
always been part of it.
we just need to sign it. I don't think it's asking who's going to be the representative, it's just
We-
asking
we
us
need
to
a
endorse.
representative.
Then I make a motion to sign it, to endorse us participating, and then we can figure out who we want to send it another time.
It does ask for an appointee, appointee phone number, appointee email address. But there's a motion to sign the endorsement letter. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Heather, I'm assuming it says select board and authorized signature would be me. the date today?
21st.
Next, we have a joint proclamation. Is that the same thing?
No, the joint proclamation I'd read out loud.
Isn't that what I just had?
I think you were reading out the commitment.
What on there do I need to read out loud?
Nope, there's another sheet.
Joint proclamation.
Oh,
Yes.
that. Sorry. The whole thing? All right, hold on. Joint proclamation for the Hampshire Regional Emergency Planning Committee among list of communities: Amherst, Belchertown, Chesterfield, Cummington, Easthampton, Goshen, Granby, Hadley, Hatfield, Huntington, Middlefield, Northampton, Pelham, Plainfield, South Hadley, Southampton, Ware, Westhampton, Williamsburg, Worthington. Whereas the provision of local emergency planning is mandated by the Federal Planning and Community Right to Know Act of 1986, thereby creating the Massachusetts Emergency Response Advisory Council. And whereas said advisory council has designated each municipality as the local emergency planning committee, and whereas municipalities are authorized pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 4A, to enter into intermunicipal agreements, and whereas the parties to this agreement wish to coordinate and meet to investigate the parameters of an agreement that may be entered into pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 4A, for the provision of joint local emergency planning services, and whereas the parties to this agreement desire to work cooperatively to negotiate a mutually acceptable intermunicipal agreement for the provision of such services under Section 4A of Chapter 40 of the General Laws of Massachusetts. Now, therefore, the undersigned communities, acting through their respective executive officers, do hereby proclaim as follows. This agreement is intended for the 20 undersigned communities to accept local plans and to share resources. 2, the parties hereto agree to designate individuals to meet regularly to plan for regional emergency planning services, subject to the approval as required by Section 4A of Chapter 40 of the General Laws of Massachusetts. 3, the parties hereto agree that such representatives shall use their best efforts to complete a suitable regional plan, subject to necessary approval by the local executive authorities. 4, such plan shall clearly state: 1, its maximum term and duration not to exceed 25 years. 2, the maximum financial liability of the parties thereto as determined by authorizing votes in their respective municipalities. 3, the authorization of the necessary authority to enter into such agreement. 4, the method of keeping records of services performed, cost incurred, and reimbursement contributions received. 5, the keeping of financial accounts and issuance of financial statements to the parties. 6, the method of payment of bills and invoices. 7, the method of withdrawal of a party from such agreement. 8, the method of appointing officers to serve in such commission. And 9, all other necessary and relevant provisions incidental to the operation and effectiveness of municipal contracts and finance. 10, a resource list comprised of personnel and equipment from, but not limited to, public works, fire, police, emergency management, school, housing, health, and the executive department of each community. Do I have a motion to sign such proclamation? Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Yes, sir.
Something about costs in there,
Yeah.
like number 3, and do we have a budget line for such costs, and do we know what the costs are?
Heather?
I would defer to Ed.
Ed?
The only thing I can tell you, in the past, this was set up by the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and there was money established in a funding grant to take care of it. And as of the last time I went, there was some money there, but I don't know if they were looking for additional money.
But what was the cost?
But there is also the caveat that they do receive grant money on an annual basis to support various activities.
Michelle?
Can I just jump in?
Yes.
The proclamation contemplated potential for an intermunicipal agreement, right? One of the statutory requirements in an intermunicipal agreement is the designation of what is your maximum liability, financial liability, if any, right? So all that laundry list was just reciting, as I heard it, and I don't have any specific information about this agreement, but that it was reciting the things that need to be included or addressed in an intermunicipal agreement. So I don't know that you necessarily take that recitation as conclusive that there is a financial cost.
Okay, but was there a cost, Ed?
No, not in the past.
I just was curious, because we don't have a budget line for that, I don't
Right.
think.
So there's a motion and a second to sign. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have warrants and payroll.
Oh, sorry.
Do you want to keep looking? We
No,
can approve minutes while you keep looking.
no, that's fine. I was just curious about a couple of things.
Since they're down there, would you read them?
Madam Chair, payroll, excuse me. Just a regular warrant. W 15-42 in the amount of $49,793.48.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, payroll warrant, P 15-43 in the amount of $229,255.64.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is that it?
That's all I got down this end. I don't know if there's anything down with John's end. John, you have anything else down there?
No, that's it.
There's one more.
I can sign
I already signed it.
Did you read it?
You didn't read that one.
Oh. This is from another day. This is from April 8th.
Yeah, but it still needs to be read.
Still needs to be read and signed.
Payroll deduction warrants, PD 15-41, total of $38,211.66.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll get one more.
Is that the same as this? That's what you're signing here.
Thanks.
We have minutes to approve. Has everyone had a chance to read them? Minutes from April 7th, a regular meeting, 3 executive session minutes. April 9th, which was a special joint meeting with the Finance Committee and Capital Improvement Committee, and April 14th, which was a special meeting. Are we having changes to the minutes, or would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from April 7th, 9th, and 14th?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. On April 23rd, which is Thursday, we're having a meeting in this room for public comment about the budget, the fiscal 16 budget. On April 28th, we have a special meeting to approve the warrant. May 5th is a regular meeting, which will probably have at least one new member on it because Ed won't be coming back.
You
so-
probably usually reorganize the board
On
that
the 5th.
evening. Yeah.
May 19th is the annual town meeting at the elementary school at 7 o'clock. May 4th is the annual election from 12 to 8 in this building. And I think that's it. At this point, we're going to move into executive session. We won't be coming back into open session. We're going to move into executive session under Mass General Law to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, or discuss the discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual, and also to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Oh, yep, that's it by roll call vote.
McDougal, aye.
Colleen, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Here's that.
Martin, aye.
Thank you all to the public for coming.